Oceanographer Tom and his family, his wife Julia, and their two children, Cassie and Ben, set off on an idyllic yacht trip in the Caribbean Sea, seeking adventure and relaxation. Tom, ever the enthusiast, focused on fishing with Ben, while Cassie sat absorbed in her gadgets. Julia, feeling the draw of the sparkling blue water, decided to take a swim. For a while, everything was peaceful, but as Julia floated in the calm sea, an inexplicable sense of dread crept over her. Though the waters remained still, she felt as if something large and dangerous was circling below. At the same time, strange glitches began affecting the yacht's instruments, but Tom, engrossed in his fishing, didn't notice. Julia's unease turned to panic as she struggled in the water. She called out, but the sound of the waves muffled her cries. As the sea seemed to tug her farther from the boat, she screamed for help. Finally, Tom heard her and rushed to the helm, steering the yacht toward her. He dove into the water and, with the children's help, pulled her aboard. Julia coughed and gasped as she recovered, apologizing for swimming without notifying anyone. The incident was soon brushed aside as the family turned their attention to celebrating Ben's 13th birthday that evening. Tom lit the candles on Ben's cake, and they all gathered for a group photo. However, the festive mood was short-lived. Cassie received a call from her boyfriend who mentioned an approaching storm on land. Suddenly, the sky darkened and a fierce storm erupted. The family rushed to secure the yacht, but as the waves thrashed the boat, they noticed something even more terrifying. Massive whale carcasses were surfacing and pressing against the yacht, as if driven by some unseen force. Tom, concerned but pragmatic, explained that storms sometimes disorient whales. Yet, as the yacht began to shake and creak, he realized the situation was dire. Attempting to investigate the damage, Tom dived into the water. He returned injured, explaining that the yacht's shafts had likely been struck by a whale's tail, leaving them unable to sail. Julia stitched his wound while Tom assessed their supplies, concluding that they had enough water for only 4 days. To make matters worse, all communication systems had failed. As the storm continued, glowing objects, later identified as satellites, began falling from the sky, crashing dangerously close to the yacht. One impact damaged their engine, leaving them completely adrift. When the storm finally subsided, the family awoke to a shocking discovery. The ocean was gone. The yacht was now stranded on a rocky outcrop in the middle of a vast, barren desert. Tom hypothesized that a polar shift had occurred, causing the sea to retreat drastically, leaving behind the desolate landscape. Julia took stock of their dwindling supplies while Ben, in a moment of innocence, released colorful balloons into the sky, hoping they might signal other survivors. Their hope was renewed when they received a faint radio transmission from Nato, the captain of a small submersible. Nato explained that he and his partner had been deep underwater during the catastrophe and had survived. However, communication systems were largely useless, and help from others was unlikely. He warned that the sea would return within a week with devastating force and urged the family to seek higher ground. As the family prepared to leave, an injured stranger appeared near the yacht, accompanied by a dog. He asked for water, and Tom, always compassionate, offered him some. However, the stranger suddenly attacked, fatally stabbing Tom in the chest. Julia witnessed the horrifying scene and rushed to her husband, but the dog's aggressive behavior forced her to retreat. The stranger pursued her onto the yacht, injuring her arm in the process. Julia managed to hide the children in a locker, giving Cassie a flare gun for protection. The stranger, clearly desperate and starving, ransacked the yacht for food. Julia armed herself with a knife and tried to evade him, eventually jumping overboard to hide. The dog found her, and in a desperate struggle, she killed it. The man discovered the dog's body and resumed his search, eventually cornering Julia on the yacht. As he attacked her, Cassie fired the flare gun, wounding him but accidentally setting the yacht on fire. Julia grabbed their packed supplies and the family escaped, leaving the yacht to explode as they fled into the desert. Grieving Tom's death, Julia led her children across the harsh, desolate terrain, constantly pursued by the relentless stranger. The family navigated toxic wastelands filled with barrels of hazardous waste, remnants of the sea's retreat. Despite their best efforts, the stranger kept tracking them. When Ben found a hammerhead shark carcass and attempted to butcher it for food, Julia spotted their pursuer and ordered the children to run. Their journey brought them to a field of plastic debris and other trash once dumped into the ocean. The children became dehydrated and despondent, with Ben blaming himself for their predicament, believing the balloons he released had attracted the stranger. Julia reassured him, reminding them to focus on survival. The family eventually found temporary refuge in the fuselage of a long-crashed plane. There, Julia shared memories of Tom, offering a brief moment of solace amid their despair. That night, the stranger found them again. Acting as bait, Cassie lured him into a trap, and Julia ambushed him, stabbing him in a final confrontation. However, his death signaled a new danger. Scavengers or predators were active in the area. The family continued their trek, desperate to reach NATO's coordinates. They eventually spotted a large shipwreck surrounded by scattered containers and a few other survivors. Julia called out for help, but the terrified people ignored her, fleeing into a container to escape a swarm of giant crabs that had emerged from the seabed. The crabs overran the container, killing everyone inside. The family climbed onto another container, but Julia was injured during the chaos. She passed out from her wounds, only to awaken and find the children searching for food. In the pockets of one of the dead, Julia found a working radio and managed to contact NATO. He warned her that deep-sea arthropods displaced by the disaster were now a major threat. He fired a flare to reveal his location, and the family hurried toward it, navigating the treacherous terrain. Their journey led them through a canyon contaminated with toxic waste. A rock slide separated Julia from her children, forcing her to plead with Cassie to ensure Ben's safety. The siblings reached NATO's submarine only to discover he was gravely injured and unable to help them directly. As they prepared to leave, Cassie insisted on returning for her mother, who was fending off an advancing swarm of crabs. In a desperate final effort, the reunited family boarded the submarine just as the sea began to return, creating a massive wave that swept them across the rocky desert. Julia passed out as memories of their harrowing journey flashed before her eyes. When she awoke, the submarine had come to rest in the ruins of a submerged city, carried there by the returning ocean. Though they had survived unimaginable trials, the family faced an uncertain future in a world forever changed. Their story was one of resilience and sacrifice, but the scars of their ordeal would remain with them forever.